Goedemiddag, beste luisteraars. Good afternoon. Welkom. Het is 8 februari. Ik dacht, ik ga eens luisteren weer naar een van de Scott Hensler shows over D-Wave quantum computers. Scott kan daar meer over vertellen dan ik. Alhoewel ik in de ICT heb gewerkt tot het jaar 2001, zeg maar tot Twin Towers. Het is in het Engels. De show is in English. Maar voor de Nederlandse luisteraars, voor de Dutch listeners, is het ook goed te volgen. Want hij praat langzaam en duidelijk. Laat je niet afschrikken door het perspectief. Scott heeft een Bijbels perspectief. Scott has a biblical view on things. Maar hij spreekt wel waarheid. En dan maakt het niet uit of je moslim bent, hindoe, atheïst, anarchist. De waarheid herken je wel. So it doesn't matter if you are Muslim or anarchist. He speaks truth. Dus ik ga ervan genieten. Luister mee als je zin hebt. Het is wel intense informatie, maar het is woord voor woord waar. Maar oordeel zelf en kijk of je er wat aan hebt. Dan ga ik even van tussenuit.
Blog Talk Radio.
D-Wave, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, superconductors, fallen angels, computers with cognitive neural abilities, but acting more like psychopath, sociopath, narcissistic ideals, less than humanity. That's really what it's about tonight. I hope I can cover the subject as easy as possible without making it complicated. I am by no means any expert in the field. I started in microprocessors in the early 80s, coming out of radio engineering. I had to learn processors. It wasn't my forte or what I really cared about. But in order to work on the equipment that I worked at in the facility, I had to understand computers. And so the 8086 basic processor and so forth is what I learned on. And then, of course, Macintosh came out, and then the typical Intel PC, IBM, was one. And anyway, so here we are today with a increased knowledge that is beyond comprehension. And a lot of the technology has been around for a very long time. I've said before, when I was working for Intel, I'd bumped elbows with some people that were in, the space programs, and some of the things they were doing, the computers they were making on board some of the probes were capable of rewiring themselves in case they came across other intelligent life forms. And in its ability to communicate, it needed to alter itself. It needed to evolve. All right, that was in 1983-84 when I talked to them about that, and that had been 20 years had already passed. So when we get into quantum computers tonight, there is another level at which computers have been taken to out of the typical classic form, like your desktop, laptop. That's operating in a plane with environments that actually slow it down, actually keep it from acting as a supercomputer. And in order to do this, you need to have a cold environment so superconductors can operate. I used to work with cryogenics. It was part of my job also. I've done a lot of things. And it's interesting that when you take an element, you take like copper, gold, silver, anything, aluminum, and you lower the temperature of it, the internal resistance to electrical charge decreases. And hence you have a superconductor. Okay, but there are materials now that are available, at least to the public. I think they've had them for a very long time, that act more like a superconductor without being cold in and itself. But then when you do bring it down to sub-zero temperatures, when you get into the kelvins, then they are the perfect material for quantum computers. So as I go through it tonight, hopefully I can make it a little more simple. And with this understanding that I want to try and bring to you tonight, then when you hear the terms and you hear, of the technology being used, good or bad, unfortunately what I'm going to go through tonight is bad, and then you won't be in the dark. You go, okay, I get it, so I see what they're doing, tell me more, instead of walking away with your head in a cloud. So I just want to make it easy for you. So the simplicity, hopefully, tonight is this is a big subject, complicated subject. It's here, it's now. It means the beast system can operate, has been operating, has been in operation, being omnipresent since Lucifer, the fallen angels, they have their own network in the spirit realm, but they're not God. So they have to have other means. So they then got the humans, starting, Tesla was one. Now, I like Tesla. Not trying to say anything bad about Tesla. He was a spiritualist towards the end. He had clairvoyant abilities. So the information that he was getting, like the electrical motor, he was looking at the sun when it came into his head. And the point of it is he was greatly influenced by the spirit realm. So the information that we have today for our technology isn't because men are intelligent. It's because the fallen angels have basically given us the technology so we can build the things for them to use in the end of days. And that's really what it amounts to. Okay, so all of this technology is in the hands of demonized madmen. Absolutely crazy people. All right, well, thank you for your letters. We got some really nice letters, some commenting on, I talked about Rh negative blood and so forth, so you have a better understanding what's going on. You need to remember everything that comes from them is a lie. It's a matrix. It's a deception. It's to keep you, one thing about martial arts or hand-to-hand combat, keeping your opponent off balance is a must. And having the upper hand and being able to think ahead of them, right? And that's what they're doing. And so this is a controlled system. And again, the technology tonight is to assist that in coordination with artificial intelligence, because the artificial intelligence is now capable, because of the quantum computing, to the level that can be demonically used against us. So everything that we hear, believe me, is to keep us from being the men and women of God that God intended us to be. So again, and also thanks for the kind emails, and thank you for your support. I'm definitely going to be able to pound out another month, and I couldn't do without you, so thank you. All right, D-Wave. Okay, D-Wave technology, D-Wave quantum computing. This is actually a corporation, D-Wave. Okay, now I don't want to go into the people behind it, but I do want you to understand that they have some of the best minds available to create the quantum computer, and they have. Now, they're designing, they're building, operating quantum computers. So the term D-Wave has become referencing of the supercomputer, even though it's actually the name of the corporation. So when you hear D-Wave technology and you associate it with mind control or artificial intelligence, it's referencing also the corporation D-Wave. Okay? So I'm going to explain in simple terms a quantum computer and the technology behind it from them. Now, in 2002-2004, D-Wave Corp., a single individual, was given a grant by DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, established in 1958. Many of you know who DARPA is. DARPA is not here for our benefit. Knock on the door. You open the door, and the guy standing there says, "Hi, I'm from the government. I'm here to help you." Close the door. That's not what he's here for. A Department of Defense, or a section of the Department of Defense. Okay? So you can see already that it has military applications. DARPA, Department of Defense. Okay? So they already know that this is what's necessary for the future of war. So what does the Department of Defense, otherwise known as the Pentagon, what do? They kill people and they break things. So already we're off to a bad start. Do you understand? Okay? So anyone associated with DARPA is indoctrinated, because the only way you're going to work there is to be in agreement. An agreement that what you build will kill people and break things. So those who have radio shows out there that pretend to be a godly man, and you have millions of people listening to you, and you have confessed that you actually work for DARPA under the Pentagon operations of the Department of Defense, you're a liar. Okay? And as I go through some of this information, and by the way, as I bring it into D-Wave technology, or scalar wave technology on Friday, I want to try and bring this all together. Then in reality, it's all tied together along with CERN. So anyone associated, again, who's indoctrinated is either a Freemason or a Jesuit, which can be CIA, NSA, because this is who they are. That again, if they tell you this, do not believe that they are true men of God, true women of God. There's no way. You cannot serve two masters. I'm sorry. To be associated would be like me going down and getting a job at the abortion clinic and then coming and doing this show. Do you get it now? It can't happen. It's just not going to happen. So do not be fooled. Okay? So, again, understand the great deception, those things that they're doing, the only way they can do it is through our cooperation. And most of us cooperate because we don't really know what's going on. Okay? So this wool that they've pulled over our eyes over the years, please just understand to take a step back and look at things as they are. Things are not as they appear. The people are not as they appear. We're warned that those come in that are once marked out for destruction, deceiving, lying, backstabbing. And so there you go. All right. In order to have a supercomputer ability, you need to have superconductors, superconductor materials of all types. And as I mentioned a little earlier, there are different types. They are available. And then when you bring them into a low temperature state through cryogenics, then they come to a complete supercomputer, which means, our superconductor, what it means, there is no internal resistance. All right? So let's say that there's a fire within a room. You have one exit door, and you've got 100 people in there that have to go through the door as quickly as possible. Well, when it comes to your life, fire, for instance, I mean, what a horrible way to go. Panic sets in. So everyone hits the door at once, or they try and get through, and you got two people trying to go through the door at the same time. Well, it doesn't work. So a superconductor eliminates that. So the ability to have current electrons flow through the material as fast as possible and in large quantities is achieved through the cryo lowering of temperature on the material selected. So there is no opposition. And when there's no opposition, then you have free flow, speeds at necessary for quantum ability. And what else? Whenever you have a restriction, you have friction. And when you have friction, you have heat. So your desktop computer, your laptop computer, you notice how hot it gets. Well, it's because your materials in the computer are not superconductor. they have resistance in them, and so the microchip, the microprocessor, quad, single, whatever you've got, generates heat because it's crunching numbers, and in its switching on and off of the transistors, that's what it is, it's millions of transistors, taking care of zeros and ones, registers of numbers to give your calculations in order for your computer to do what it does, and at a massive, incredible rate, produces heat. So the super quantum computers do not produce heat because they're already in a state of cryo. All right? So this is how they achieve it. So it's a very controlled atmosphere. It's a master in engineering, not millions, but billions of dollars to get it where it's at. Okay? Because if anyone could have done it, they would have done it a long time ago. So also in quantum theory, you need several areas of operation. All right? One of those is also referred to as annealing. Now, annealing is like when you heat material up and you let it set and cool, so the atoms that are within the material can find their own place, right? If you allow people to come into a room, they'll select a chair to sit down in, right? So if you give them an assignment, which would be like quenching the metal into water, then you've forced them into a seat. You force them into a place. But in annealing, you're allowing them to come in the room and find their own seat and sit down. Okay, so hence you lessen the confusion. You speed up the operation and give the people the sense that they're comfortable and that they made the selection. Okay, do you see where I'm going with this now? So now we already have an intelligence within the quantum computer, and I'm going to get into this here of how that works. And so in the environment, it is made a friendly environment instead of a hostile environment like your computer that generates heat. Okay? So again, annealing is one of the operations. Okay? Selectable evolution. Now, it's able to evolve. It's able to be flexible. It's able to morph into what is necessary to complete the task. All right, so now we've got something that's not even, starting to become more like a creation. Weird, huh? Everything we've been taught in science, I'm 60 now. Everything I learned in school, how they said that everything is finite and ever expanding and principles are fixed, well, they were lying. They're absolutely lying to us. Now, the teachers weren't because they didn't know any different. But in reality, the sciences behind it, like Einstein and Tesla and some of the others, they already knew all about this. Okay, one of the things I mentioned about Einstein, his job was to fool you. Okay? You need to understand that he came along to hide, cover up gravity, tried to show that things were ever moving and expanding in a certain fixed rate, when in reality, when we look at quantum, when we look at nanotechnology, when we look at all this stuff, the sky's the limit. You simply have to know how to control the atom, how to control the nucleus, and control the nucleus evolution or the evolving of the free electrons around the atom. By manipulating and controlling it, you can completely control the physics of it. Hence you have nanotechnology. Hence you have quantum theory. And so the selective evolution in itself is an incredible thing. Okay, not like Titan or Cray computers of the past. Again, they were fixed in an environment. They were one-dimensional or two-dimension, in, out, not an up-down, not coming in at a 45-degree angle with logic or information. See, with quantum, these things, as I go through here, you'll understand the data comes in all directions, okay? A space cop. So you got some guy that's in a spacesuit up in space, and he's directing spaceships. Well, the spaceships are going to come in all directions. He's not sitting in the middle of an intersection where a car comes to you and behind you or from the left and right. The cars come up from underneath you or above. You understand? So now you've magnified, you've increased the crunching ability with data and the ability to form a new theory of operation. Okay, so quantum computers are actually amazing, all right? So not like Titans or the old craze. Able to supervise itself. Huh? Yeah, it's able to police itself. It knows how to, in its own environment and structure, its best operating potential. Again, kind of sounds like intelligence, doesn't it? So these things that are built into it, these things that are fixed, which can only happen in a cryogenic state, happen in a superconductor state, are achieved. Now, it isn't just as simple as I said. There's a lot of science behind it, a lot of control mechanisms, a lot of software design, but that's where the billions of dollars came in. They were able to achieve it. And believe me, they're a lot further along than they want to tell us, even though they have what they have. Okay? It needs to be able to adjust and find the best operating of self conditions. Operate in an environment to be able to operate also in an environment of radio interference, radiation interference, which we have all around us, Earth's magnetic field without any interference whatsoever, because in the state that it's in, it's kind of like a diamond cutter. A diamond cutter needs to be working on something stable. That diamond needs to be fixed. He needs to get a good night's sleep when he comes cracking down with that mallet on top of his chisel. It's got to be perfect or the diamond is lost. And in order for quantum computers to operate, they need to operate in an environment that is friendly. So the housing, the case that you see them in, like the pictures if you're on Blog Talk, most of that is a environment sound protection, Faraday cages, thermal protected, different coils, electrical coils around it to alter with sensors to alter the Earth's magnetic field that would be influencing the electrons. Because these things are operating so fast that if you deflect one of them ever so slightly, then it's not going to make its path, all right? And hence you slow it down and or have error in the calculations, right? So that in itself was another science, again, why it cost billions of dollars. These things operate so fast that they're also capable of operating at a single atom level, all right? So transistors. Transistors, there's a measurement of electron movement or storage called coulombs. And it means how many electrons are moving at a certain rate, hence you have current, and or how many are stored to produce amps, and then the amount of them then produce voltage, which means pressure. And so this environment, instead of dealing with, to the power of 10 electrons, this is dealing in single electron or single atom environment. So hence, again, you have less control, less that you have to control, less friction because you're not dealing with so many of them, and you get speed out of it. And at that level, then, you can have more transistors. You can have more input-output controls. So again, reducing the size of these devices at single atom level. That's absolutely amazing. Okay. All right, so then heat and vibration, these cabinets that I'm talking about, they're on special tables. They're able to environmentally control the temperature to keep it constant so there's no expansion or contraction. These things are absolutely amazing. And also, remember, when I say cryo, this is literally operating 100 times colder than the vacuum of space. And this is all contained in those cabinets that you see. Okay? This is what it takes to get superconducting abilities for quantum computers. Okay? All right. So the less electrons used, then the switching on and off, like transistors, is more efficient, faster, as I mentioned. They're more coefficient. They're more efficient and faster overall. So again, a single atom operation in cold superconducting atmosphere means quantum computers. Now memory Okay, if you have numbers, you have to store them. If you have data, you have to store them. So we all have memory in our computers, right? Well, memory can be done the same way, because if you're crunching the numbers so fast, you've got to be able to feed the monster, right? He's hungry. He needs information. You've got to get it from somewhere. So the memory involved in it is done the same way. Now, I've talked about Salt Lake City. I've talked about NSA. I've talked about the computers they had there, and I've mentioned that they have liquid nitrogen tanks there. Liquid nitrogen is one of the cryogenic applications for bringing temperatures down on devices, and they've got thousands and thousands of gallons of storage that I see at their facilities in the pictures I've said. And I talked about it's for heat reduction in the processors. But see, they've already set the stage for quantum computing. They're able to supply the cryogenics technology that's necessary for it to operate in that environment. So that means a tremendous amount of number crunching, but also as I get through here, you'll understand what quantum computers is really all about. So again, just understand that even in memory itself, they can do that. So memory can be stored and retrieved at quantum speeds. Okay. So computers, as I mentioned, are basically two-dimensional, in, out, left, right, right? These transistors just simply switch on and off. That's really what it amounts to. It either is or it isn't. Okay. With quantums, you have variables between on and off. Okay. Listen, I want you to listen to what I just said. You have a state of on and you have a state of off. You throw the light switch, the switch goes on. You throw the switch down, the light goes off. But in quantum computer, you also have the state in between. You have a half on, half off. And in itself is a logic. So now you've added a higher number of computation to just simply zeros and ones. You now have another factor. And again, when you bring it in a third-dimensional application, as I go through here with even more that's applied to it, because this stuff is amazing, that basically, wow. I mean, that in itself is an incredible thing. Now, to fill the holes in a semiconductor, now let me define semiconductor. Transistors. That's what transistors are made of. That's what the microchips are made of, is semiconductors. That means you have a material like plastic, wood, rubber, glass that is a insulator. So it is not a conductor. And then you have aluminum, you have gold, you have copper. Well, that is a conductor. It's able to transfer electrons where plastic and glass cannot. Then you have the state in the middle that's either a conductor or either a insulator, like a transistor or a valve. That's what the British call it. So then hence you have a semiconductor. That's where the term comes from. It can be either way. And it's biased, it's switched on, it's influenced, and you get amplification, you get logic, you get oscillation. That's where radio transmitters are done, audio amplifiers. All of this stuff is through this application. So in that science in itself, that in the simple logic of what's called classical, that is the old technology. But now we've moved into something different, that where the states of on and off can be in between. Very bizarre, okay? So this is adding a quantum dimension instead of a single electron of on and off. When using a single electron, that you're able to actually use its nucleus. You're actually able to use its field as part of the computations. Again, you have that state of in between. So in reality, it's acting more like a neural computer, meaning more like the human mind, because your synapses, the way that your brain is structured, you don't just have one wire going to it or one nerve. You've got them coming in from the bottom, you've got them coming in from the side, you've coming in from all over. Okay, see, we're getting more into now some type of an intelligence, and in itself in physics, that it takes on its own characteristics. So it's acting more like a brain, with inputs and outputs going in and out like emotions, because there's a point in time that in its calculation or in its state that it's able to, as I remember I mentioned that it was supervising itself, policing itself, then it's able to act like a traffic cop and say, okay, this particular bit of information can be done better somewhere else. So like telling someone who pulls up to you and says, how do you get to such and such? And you could tell them, go this way, go that way, but you know a shortcut. All right? So now it's able to make that determination. Wow. And you got to remember, this is at lightning speed. Absolutely amazing. Okay? So emotions, sight, smell, touch, thought. Wow. So again, it's starting to act more like a human. Now, I'm not saying that it's artificial intelligence. That's not what I'm saying here. But what it is it's capable of being itself and acting in the environment that best fits itself. So if you have an individual who's very well trained, successful people who are good fighters, in the ring, people who are disciplined, we'll just call the quantum computer disciplined. Okay, we'll just look at it like that. So a whole new concept of data crunching. This basically is a computer that's capable of thinking outside the box. It's not encased into perimeters. It's not put into an environment that it has to stay in the environment. It's allowed to grow and operate in the environment that it finds best to operate. Quantum tunneling is one of these operations. Now, when we look at an electron that cannot get to a certain point, quantum tunneling in its physics is able to operate inside the box to influence something outside the box. Well, that's pretty weird. Yes, it is. It's very weird. But again, getting down to a single atom, getting down to this level, this technology comes in. So operating outside of the physical restrictions. Again, remember I talked about nanotechnology. The other is energy level quantization, operating at different energy levels. Now remember I talked about being state of on or off or in between. Now we're at an amplitude. We're capable of being variable within that state in the middle of it. So it can be 25% on, it can be 75% on, it can be 50% on. Whole nother realm here. All right. Remember I said things are coming in at all angles. So again, this is not like classical computing where energy states are constant of either on or off. Completely different. Okay. Now, the levels at different parts of the quantum data that's being crunched, as I talked about for the energy level quantization, again, is adding to the versatility and the speed. Okay? Not just taking a massive amount of numbers, but correctly getting them from point A to point B in a very short period of time with the ability of zero error. Because if there's error, then it has to correct itself. Kind of like if there was a race, a baton, where you pass the baton to the other runner, and if they drop it, you got to stop and you got to pick it up. Where the team that didn't drop it, they're going to be ahead of you. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Okay, superpositioning, able to evolve. Now this is again what I was talking about. Able to look in the environment and alter and change and morph into what is necessary to achieve the best and quickest goal of the data to be crunched. Absolutely incredible. Okay? To complete the task as fast as possible without error, to evolve into its environment that'll best meet the needs. Entanglement is another part of quantum theory. Electrons in pairs, electrons affected by others, electrons independently, also allowing results to compare at different locations within the processor. So it's almost like they're able to communicate to each other. And so if you're running a corporation and you have a team over here who is doing a particular task, and then you have a team over here that's doing a particular task. You don't want them to duplicate it, so you need to let them know that one team has already come up with this, and so don't bother. Go ahead and move on to something else, and or you may want that second team to verify that the first team was correct. Pretty incredible. Do you see? I mean, it just boggles me. Okay? Also allowing results to be compared at different locations at the same time. So, all self-supervised, self-governing. It is known, this whole process, by the way, is known as a qubit. A qubit, like bit of information, Q, letter Q, quantum, bit. So everything that I just described here is a qubit computation. That is the basic zeros and ones, which we would know as hexadecimal, binary, and a two-dimensional computer, a classic computer, is now referred to as a qubit. Okay? So with this qubit, it can be processed either with light, laser, or electron connection, meaning, it has to have the semiconductor, electromagnetic influences, but only one way for this to work best, again, in a deep freeze superconductor environment known as cryogenics, with quantum registers. Now, whenever you have a computer, you have several inputs, you have several outputs. An 8-bit, it's funny, I can remember 4 bits and then 8 bits, and then all of a sudden 32 was like, wow, and then 64, and then now we have quad. Well, they have quantum registers. So now the qubit, which is capable of doing all this incredible single computation, is now several of them. And then now, because of that, the quantum calculation behind it is exponential. The sky's the limit with able to crunch numbers. Okay? So, remember that anyone who has a laptop or desktop computer, they're never going to reach that limit with this, at least not in our lifetime, because of the two-dimensional, and with quantum being 3, being able to have qubits, that is a whole different environment that at this date and time, at least for us in public, that the equipment for it is beyond our reach. Now, of course, when I was raised in the 60s and went to school in the 70s and had my family in the 80s and, ventured into a new life in the 90s, those kind of, the computers we have now weren't even thought of. So you never know. You never know. The New World Order may open up the door and let us have them. Kind of scary. Because just think of what hackers do with computers now. Okay? And just remember, these computers do not generate heat. Quantum computers do not generate heat because they are already a superconductor. Okay? When turned on, they self-adjust. They evolve under its own state to find the best high-speed operation. Okay? All right. So, again, anyone that is trained, self-disciplined, has good genes, they have a high IQ, they're driven, that's what a quantum computer is. They're a businessman, they're a soldier, they're a scientist whose life is dedicated for a sole task. They have a life of their own, able to achieve what others cannot. Okay? Now, again, they've only scratched the surface, really. You got to remember that, this is fallen angel technology. Sorry, it is. And so what's next? But again, my concern is what is next? So we don't even know what all they've told us. They only give us a little bit, here and there of these things. All right? So with such a machine, what does this mean? This means artificial intelligence. Now, in order for AI to be successful, you need to have a tremendous amount of data input in order to have the probability of the outcome necessary for it to have reason, to have cognitive ability to come to a reasonable decision or output that can have worth. because without worth or success or ability to finish the task at hand, artificial intelligence isn't necessary. It has no meaning. But in order, again, to do it, that since they, it's still not a human, it's still not has the memory to turn to the experience of what works, what doesn't, it needs to crunch the numbers. So what I want to try to do here on artificial intelligence is that when used by quantum computers, that with all the data crunching, that now they have the ability to replace wisdom, knowledge, experience, and basically running off of probability. Okay, probability, or running the numbers, crunching the numbers. What is the potential means, is actually very successful. I can remember when they introduced that into Motorola in 1990. I had to go through the classes and learned this, and so with the information of the factory, downtime, the success of the operators, the equipment abilities, its ranges, its time of the day, what shift of the people are there, you can calculate the probability of success at the end of the production line at the end of the week, right down to the last component. How many are going to be rejected? How many are going to be successful? What's the long-term potential failure rate? When they get out into an environment of temperature and shock and all the other things, the product that you're making, are they going to be able to withstand? So number crunching is absolute. It really is, though it is not human in its thinking, that in reality its ability to come to a knowledge of the facts, to be able to be delivered as truth, is absolutely amazing. Now, I used to use this also in search and rescue. I was trained as, someone would refer to it as the incident commander. The class that I went through and was certified in was operating a search function through the National Association of Search and Rescue. And so we ran the numbers. If we had an individual who was lost, and that person who was lost was a child, they're going to walk aimlessly. They don't really have a reason. They don't have any experience, and they operate in fear. Versus a hunter who's lost, who would tend to maybe hike upward because he's used to hunting to where he can then oversee the area to look for game. And then you have an experienced hiker who may try and hike out, or they may camp in for the night, right? So you put in all these variables of the behavior of individuals, and you come up with the probability of where they'll be. Are they going to be able to sustain the night? Is there a probability that they were there for suicide? Maybe that's why they were lost. They don't want to be found, right? And it's amazing the software that we worked with, especially in the 90s, 80s, and 90s, which is amazing, actually was quite factual. And I believe that it was, Los Angeles County, and what was there's Orange County. I can't remember the county it came from, but it was amazing what they were able to do. All right. So artificial intelligence is running on the numbers, running on the input, and then coming up with a probability. It's really what it amounts to. All right. So let's look at an AI, an artificial intelligence. It is also supervised learning. Okay. It isn't just freewheeling. It has a perimeter. It has laws. It has rules. Its inputs, its outputs, its variables are supervised to give a direction. Okay? So those in charge of artificial intelligence give it a personality. They give it a direction. They give it a purpose, a means to function in. So in reality, artificial intelligence, whether it's good or bad, evil or of something of worth, is really in the hands of the operator. Okay, so I have concerns about that. All right. Accumulated data is required for the operation or the purpose referred to as mapping on artificial intelligence. Okay? Accumulated data. Now, when we've talked about Jade Helm was an operation like the last one that took place in Texas, that what was going on is all the actions of the troops, all the actions, or I should say reactions of the citizens, were inputted. And all this data was fed into artificial intelligence for it to give a probability of the reaction of the people. So if you're going to push them, how hard are they going to push back? If you break into their homes and seize their guns, what are they going to do? If you gather them up and you try and get them into trucks to take them to FEMA camps, are they going to fight? What type of person's going to fight? Are they organized? Are they going to have success in fighting back? So is the whole task going to fail? See, that's what this artificial intelligence is good for them, I should say. And so Jade Helm was just that. So its base software has rules. And the rules, obviously, for Jade Helm was what was the rule or the probability of reaction by the troops to give the best outcome or the best reaction of the citizens that they were policing. Okay? Able to alter logic based on variables. Okay, we're variable. I have a good day, bad day. I can be sitting here, making a joyful noise and get a phone call from somebody who's not real happy. And now I have a variable in my life. I now have a variable in my instance that in it is going to alter or change. Okay? So with artificial intelligence, with a variable, it's able to estimate the unexpected that is influencing the data input. Okay? So you can see where quantum computers, remember I said that they have their own to able to evolve. So in it's evolving, it's morphing, it's able to then have the variable estimate any unexpected influence to come out with the best result. The perfect machine for artificial intelligence. Like human behavior can be unexpected. You just never know what's going to happen. You never know what anyone's going to do. Well, with artificial intelligence under quantum computing, the probability of it coming out with a solution that best fits its outcome for success is capable through this equipment. All right? So regardless of any circumstances that you throw at it, it's going to be able to deal with it. Because you got to remember, it's at super lightning speed. Absolutely unbelievable. So where our minds are being bombarded by emotions and thoughts and our life flashing before our eyes, the computer doesn't deal with that. It's looking at the facts. It's looking at the probability. It's looking at the information necessary to end a result. All right? With that given of a probability of estimating and finalizing, giving its opinion, what to do, what to say, and how to do it. Only at lightning speed. Now, that's what makes a good supervisor. That's what makes a good president. That's what makes someone who is a sergeant or a corporal or a lieutenant and a platoon, that during war times they're able to function under environments that normally would crack the normal person. They would fail because they wouldn't be able to process it. Okay? So you need to also remember that this is able to learn on its own outputs. So when it gives an output, it's also part of the learning capability. Just like if you learn from your own mistakes, and let's say that you did learn from your own mistakes, many of us don't, but in and itself becomes part of the logic. Okay? So it confirms its outputs, looking for the best scenario per its own rules stated either by itself or by the operators. And again, it's the operators that concern me when it comes to artificial intelligence. Okay? So this whole thing is referred to as neural networking. So when you think of artificial intelligence, think of neural networking. So they too are applying the theory behind artificial intelligence when using quantum computers as human mind ability, being able to run the numbers at a given time with all kinds of data, but at super incredible speeds. So much like human mind, cognitive thinking, but with an ability to not be influenced with fear. All right, many of us have that problem. Now, we have not been given a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and sound mind. So, as I go through what potentially could happen here with this under a demonic influence, you need to remember, demonics can use radio waves. They can use, some of you might remember the Frank's box that I talked about for clairvoyance, that they're able to manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum, otherwise frequencies, resonances, to actually communicate to people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if they can do that, then they can influence a computer. And so many of the problems you have with your computers, many of the problems that we have that have been in our lives has been through demonic influences. So now you have fallen angel technology built by men who are demon possessed. And if they weren't, they are now. Or they've been killed, dead scientists. That in any of the case, we fall into a potential now of what I would refer to as the beast system. However, wisdom is always in question whenever we have this technology. So I need you, again, to understand that without true wisdom of one that has a godly, divine thinking, that this equipment, being in the wrong hands, is a weapon that is to be reckoned with, okay? So, again, what are the rules defined? Is it a demon-possessed individual defining the rules? Is it a fallen angel defining the rules? So is yes, yes? Is no, no? A go or no go? Right, wrong, safe, unsafe, success, or failure? How are these all defined? How are these all defined when it comes to artificial intelligence? So again, now you can take the AI and operate via the D-Wave computer, quantum computers. So qubits, artificial intelligence, we're talking about a monster. Remember, quantum computers have the ability to evolve. They have the ability to evolve now with artificial intelligence. Again, in the hands of madmen, in the hands of demon-possessed, in the hands of whoever. Can it become evil? Can it have self-preservation? Otherwise, if you go to dismantle it, remember 2001? What are you doing, Dave? Remember he was trying to dismantle the computer? Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, they were telling us ahead of time what they had planned all along. Can it be influenced by evil? Can it be controlled by evil? Evil beings, demons, fallen angels, demon-possessed people. This is my big question. Its operating ability can basically also, ladies and gentlemen, operate scalar technology. Now, I'm going to be talking about scalar wave technology on Friday. Okay, I'm not going to get into it tonight. I don't have enough time tonight. I wanted to get through all of this information, hopefully for you to be able to understand more about quantum computers, the D-Wave technology, the qubits, artificial intelligence, its self-supervising, its rules that it runs by, and the potential ability to be operated by those who do not have our best interest in mind. So its operating ability can become scalar technology accessible, especially if it's connected to input-outputs, otherwise the internet or other microwave or satellite linking to transmitters that are already scalar technology or scalar wave technology. And we need to understand that Tesla was the main conception. I talked about this on the Flat Earth. I talked about this for Montauk Project. Okay, now you have all of this technology operating at incredible quantum abilities, incredible speeds, that if you had somebody that was psychic, that was able to sit in like the Montauk chair, and with artificial intelligence and quantum computers, they could rule the world using scalar technology. Hence you have scalar mind control, which is already in operation, which is under the auspices of DARPA, which we talked about earlier, that's already funded the D-Wave. Hence, you have the beast system. Do you understand that? I want you to get that. It's already in place. It's already here. Many of you are gang stalked. Many of you are targeted individuals. Many of you are, unfortunately, have demons. You're under curses. You're dealing with situations that are beyond your control, and you're suffering greatly from it. It's terrible, okay? So again, on Friday, I will talk about the scalar technology, again under DARPA, used for energy weapons. It isn't just for mind control, because Tesla was actually using that technology to transfer power, energy, from one place to another. Remember I talked about Siberia, how the trees got knocked down? It's the same thing. That's what we're talking about here. Came off of Long Island, went up over north and hung a left and hit Siberia and knocked all those trees down. And so in the hands of artificial intelligence operated by quantum, being implemented by DARPA under the control of the Pentagon, under the Department of Defense, which in reality is run by Jesuits, Freemasons, under the Catholic Church known as the Vatican, also part of the Illuminati, nothing good can come out of it. Again, we have the beast system. This is how this is going to take place. If you've ever wondered how the end of days was going to be, I hope in a nutshell I have just explained it to you. Now, the other is that with scalar wave or scalar technology, that since it's able to send energy through the earth without any interference, so otherwise, when you measure a radio wave, now, you need to understand that scalar in itself, the energy form itself is not a, quote, frequency, though it's operated in its means as such, but it's in a different physics. So it's pure energy. And so by pulsing it, by modulating it, by controlling it, that if you send it through the earth, you literally can change the bio of the earth. Now they're actually looking at if there's earthquakes to actually counter earthquakes. Well then does that mean they can create earthquakes? Yeah, then you have HARP. Do you understand what they're doing? HARP also is part of scalar technology. All right? So now let's look at CERN. All right? Hadron Collider. Again, scalar type technology, but in itself is controlled in a environment. Again, cryogenics is involved. The application of colliding electrons and its ability to open portals, to time travel, to be able to allow things to come and go, to send people from one place to another into another dimension, is literally behind all of this technology. So even though Tesla came up with this over 100 years ago, they've known all of this physics that I just described all of this time, and they've been telling us something different. Do you understand that? They've been lying to us this whole time. They've been able to do all the same thing with nanotechnology. Okay, the fact that they can even alter and control the electrons of a element, of a material, the way they do to form it, to control it, to produce it, to manufacture it, and a nano, whether it's an insect that flies with electronics, that's a bomb that can blow off somebody's ear, whether it's a roach that crawls into a enemy's camp and listens to everything they're talking about, or a clone built from the ground up. This technology has been known because of the alteration of physics that we were told were unvariable, that they were fixed. That again, this is one of the reasons that Einstein, that I'm telling you, was lying to us. Okay? Tesla knew all this a long time ago, and as I mentioned on the Flat Earth show and in Montauk, that everything was a lie and a deception. So scalar waves could literally rule the world if once in the hands of those who are madmen. All right? So all now we have in operation is already in place for this technology. Again, CERN. If you again wondered how the end times was going to take place, this is it. This is how it's implemented. This is demons, fallen angels, quantum technology being applied at the same time. They have known this for over 100 years. And as I get into it Friday, you'll understand even more. All right. Well, I'm not here to scare you. I'm here for you to understand. Because you understand, ladies and gentlemen, the more that you know, then the more you can petition God. Whenever I do a deliverance, the specific application, otherwise, let's say a person has a demon of fear, that when I know it is a demon of fear, and I call it by the name of demon of fear, then I say to that demon, you are under my authority, you demon of fear. It has to obey me because I operate in the power and the blood of Jesus Christ. And so by you understanding quantum computers, understanding artificial intelligence, understanding scalar wave technology, that when they are used as weapons against us and we petition God, we can specifically call it out. Do you understand that now? They want to keep us ignorant. They want to keep us in the dark. And I, for one, will not accept that. This is unacceptable. All right, I hope I made sense tonight. The amount of information, I only gave you a sniglet. I mean, it's amazing. This is incredible stuff. And the people who are doing this, man, I bumped elbows with people who were top scientists, top chemists, like at General Electric and Motorola. And these people, man, they've got to be getting it from fallen angels. I don't see any other way around that. I really don't see any other way around that. All right. Good night, everyone.
Nou, was het alles wat ik gezegd heb dat het zou zijn? A lot of information, but I hope you enjoyed it. Ik hoop dat je ervan genoten hebt. En fijne avond of dag verder. Tot ziens.